So, controlling your emotions. Why is this something that is so difficult, especially for women? Why is it something that we shy away from discussing? And why is it something that gets us in so much trouble? These three questions are what we are going to embark on in today's conversation about controlling your emotions. Because, first of all, and this might sound very surprising coming from me, but I actually do agree when men often say that women are too emotional. Now, before you drag me by my singlet, let me just explain what I mean. What I agree with in men saying that women are too emotional is when they are referring to what I would describe as the disproportionate emotional outbursts that women often have in response to feeling rejected by men. In me saying that I agree when men say women are too emotional, that doesn't mean that I'm necessarily saying that I also believe that we should just discredit women's emotional responses to patriarchy and misogyny, and that it is in fact true that men are right and women should be more logical. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm referring to in women being oftentimes too emotional with men is a lack of self-control that often puts us in a position as women where we lose our power, because I do believe that women have power. We don't have patriarchal or systemic power, but interpersonally we have power when we are in relationships with men. And oftentimes how that power is exuded is sexually. And even if it isn't a sexual power, we just have a suggestive element to the way that we deliver our power, our authority in certain elements or spaces or environments. I think there's a difference between communicating your needs and being needy. There is a way to communicate your needs without being overly emotional. And then there's being needy, which is usually what men would, I guess, also describe as emotional. The thing is, I'm not saying that it's bad to be emotional or that expressing your emotions to somebody who is receptive to them puts you in danger of being used or that you're doing it wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that sometimes certain situations we find ourselves in don't warrant the emotional expression that we give it, especially when that man can see it. So what I mean is, there have been times, especially as of the more recent past. And when I say recent past, I mean like a few months ago. Because I'm still learning too, and I'm learning out loud. And that's what I enjoy about hosting this podcast is I get to share my insights as I go along. So one of the things that I did recently, as of a few months ago, that I wouldn't say I regret, because I'm trying to replace the word regret with, you know, what I've learned. What I've learned from what I did the past few months ago was managing my emotions better, especially when talking to a guy that I had attraction to. So what I mean is, there was a situation where there was a guy who briefly entered my life and left as soon as he came. And this was probably like, I want to say this was like a 2-week bend up. We did not date. We went on one date. And he was doing the thing that the charming, good-looking, successful guys like to do, where they use what they're used to doing with other women who are just as gorgeous and exciting as you are, where they swoon you with their exciting chat and their unavailability at the same time. So with this guy, what had happened was he would do this thing where we would talk for, enough time during the day where I was of the impression that, okay, this guy seems interested in me. I'm entering his mind and he's making me aware of that, whether it's through him sending me a voice note or texting me a joke, or him just sending me a meme, whatever it is, he's just interacting with me to give me the impression that we good. And then he started doing the disappearing act. And baby me, as of months ago, baby me was annoyed by the disappearing act because it made me feel rejected and confused. And I was also offended by that behavior. So what I did was, after I had the last interaction with him, where I kind of told him about himself without being, insulting or explosive, but rather I was just very straight to the point, asking him a question of why he chose to make plans that he wasn't prepared to follow through with. Even though he was polite and apologetic in his response, I still blocked him straight after that. And I feel like in hindsight, I shouldn't have blocked him. And I'm not saying I shouldn't have blocked him because, he could come back and things could have been better and we could have dated and no. The reason why I feel like I shouldn't have blocked him is because blocking someone, like, unless that person is a pest, or unless that person is so insufferable and you've had such a dragged out back and forth with them where that person is aware that they're probably on borrowed time with you now, or unless that person is stalking you or endangering you, I just don't feel like you need to block them. Because on the receiving end of being blocked, especially a guy perceiving a woman blocking him and he doesn't fit the description of those three things I just described, he's going to think that, like, he got to you. And that's so annoying. So annoying. I hate when men think that they got me like that. So what I would have done differently in that situation would have been, first of all, I wouldn't have even asked him that last question I asked him about why did you create plans you weren't prepared to follow through with, because that I should have just found something else to do. I could have just found something else to do, like, i.e. make my own plans. Because when you make your own plans, you're not thinking about the plans that the person cancelled on you or the person ghosted you on or the person didn't get back to you on, because you're in the plans that you made. Should have made my own plans. Secondly, shouldn't have blocked him. Should have just left him there, because he still would have said something to me at some point. Like, he still would have come back, because men like to hoover to see if they can still have your attention, or when another woman that they're talking to isn't quite giving them the kick that they wanted, they'll come to you. Whatever reason the man's going to come to you, he'll come to you, innit? And where you can reinstate your power is to ignore him. Yes, that's what I should have done. But I was being too emotional by blocking him. Now, it could be argued from someone else's perspective that it was an empowering thing to do to block him. I don't believe it's the end of the world that I blocked him. Yeah, there's probably someone out there like that guy who thinks that, yeah, he got me emotionally because I've blocked him. Okay, well, that's not the worst thing for someone to think of me. There are worse things he could have thought. For example, if I had let him sleep with me. Thankfully, things didn't go to that place, because early on the dates we went on, I made sure to make it clear that I'm not interested in sleeping with him and I'd like to have a friendship and see where the friendship goes. And because he's, like, super good looking, like, those guys that are, like, stereotypically, classically good looking, like, with people like that, I'm not moved by a guy's looks. Like, it would give me an incentive to maybe move your application to the top of the pile, but it is not the defining factor that would inform whether I choose to date you or not. Like, you still need to be generous and have money and have your shit together and not be jealous of me, because I'm a powerful woman who has her own career going for her and can do all the things you can do for me. And if you can't do the things for me that I can do by myself times 10, I can just carry on living my life without you. So essentially, a man's looks will not change anything, can't change my life. If you can't change my life, I don't want to date you. So with this guy, there was potential for him to change my life, but because he was aware of that potential, because good looking men know they're good looking, successful men know they're successful. When that combination occurs, fucking hell, mate. I had to kind of like hold my own and have some self control in the sexual department, which for me, having self control when it comes to sex is not, that's not an issue for me, because I've spent quite a few years working on that. So I'm good. And we'll come back to the sexual self control topic in this conversation of controlling your emotions. But I do feel annoyed that somewhere along the line, he probably felt like he got to me emotionally because I blocked him. And like I said, thank God I didn't do what maybe 5 years ago version of me would have done, where I would have gone off on him. And like, oh, why did you do this? Because it's like, you think you're being empowered by going off on a guy, telling him about himself. You just look emotional. And when you look emotional, you look like you're bothered. And when you look bothered, you look like you're invested. Because more times than not, yeah, when a woman is invested in a relationship with a man, it's not her money that she invests, unless she's literally seeking out broke men to go and rescue and bind herself to, which is a whole different stratosphere in itself. But more times than not, when a woman is invested in a relationship, it's her emotions that she invests. And when a man is invested in a relationship, it's his money that he invests. Granted that you're actually dating properly. And when I say dating properly, I mean dating men who can actually do stuff for you, not dating men who are going to tell you compliments or give you or keep you company. Because it's like, look, if you know how to see yourself as beautiful and you're convicted in that belief from the inside out, and you have your proof that you're beautiful, whether that proof is in the form of you getting compliments from people, or you have multiple men interested in you, or you just know you're beautiful regardless of who else witnesses it. And if you're someone who can keep yourself company, like you live an exciting life, you do your hobbies that you enjoy, you have things to look forward to. Like if you live a full zesty life, really and truly, a man who can only give you compliments and company is not going to be a man that's going to be useful to date. So more times than not, you'd be looking outside of that and you'd be looking for more. For example, applying myself to this situation, what I look for. And the thing is, the phrase look for implies that I'm looking for a man. I'm not looking for a man. I'm actually just living my life, and I'm open to meeting people who may meet my standards. And in that openness and in that receptive state of being, it means that the men that I'm likely to give more of a chance to get to know me are men who are doing well in their career. Like, to put things very directly and bluntly, the men that I'm more likely to give my time to are men who are doing well in their career, and that involves them doing financially well for themselves. Those same men would be men who are confident in themselves. Those same men will be men that are intelligent and switched on in a way where they are intrigued by the work I do and not intimidated or, oh, you hate men. Because I get that a lot from men. Oh, you must hate men. It's like, well, if you think I hate men, then you haven't critically engaged with anything that I've said, which means you're not someone that I would date, because you don't even have the intellectual bandwidth to do anything with me. And trust and believe, I have actually met men who meet the description of a guy who is successful in his career, who has the intellectual range to resonate with the work that I do, who is generous, who is fun to hang out with. I've met those men. They exist, trust me. So for me, having that grounded and content foundation for myself means I have a lot of self-control. Another thing, there is a huge difference between responding and reacting. If you are a fire sign like me, I am a Sagittarius sun. The other fire signs are Leo and Aries. Scorpio is not a fire sign, it is a water sign, but I will throw Scorpio in there because Scorpios are easily triggered and offended. Sorry guys, but it's true. If you are one of those four signs, Sagittarius, Leo, Aries, Scorpio, you need to work on being reactive. Yes, you need to work on being reactive, because when you are reactive, you're easily manipulated. Because if somebody knows what you're likely to be reactive to, and they want to get a particular reaction out of you, either to tilt the conversation in a particular direction or to make you kind of lose control, or for them to check and see how pressed you are about them, they will do something that will make you react. So as a fire sign or a Scorpio, you have to make an extra effort to develop a relationship with your own emotional self-control. Because if you know how to channel that reactive energy, because it's never going to go away. It's never going to go away, but you can transmute it and you can change the shape of that energy. So for me, I'm a reactive person. Yes, I'm reactive. So old me, who was far less evolved, let's say a guy that I fancy, who fancies me, has been kind of acting hot and cold with me because he's probably fearful, avoidant in his attachment style. And you know what? These days, I don't even care to reason with what a man's attachment style is. You're either a dickhead or you're not. Anyway, for the sake of conversation, let's go with, okay, he's fearful, avoidant attachment style. And how that behavior manifests is that, he blows hot and cold. Okay. Old me would probably be a lot more reactive and would angrily express, I don't like the fact that sometimes you text me and then when I text you back, you don't reply for ages. I find it annoying and it hurts my feelings. It hurts my feelings when you don't reply to my messages. The reason I'm making fun of that is because that's how you sound. You just sound silly and you just sound over-invested in some guy who can't even have basic respect for you. He's starting conversations with you that he has no intention of continuing, let alone finishing. You ain't need to tell him about how it hurts your feelings that he ain't responding to you. Now, where current evolved me would respond while still being inspired by my reactivity is... Because both current and old me would still feel that feeling of, I don't like the fact that this guy's playing with me like that. Because I know you like me, but you're trying to passively get me to chase you, and it will not work. So current me, instead, would immediately trust my observation. So the reaction that I would have to that observation would be, cool, I'm not saying anything to you anymore. That's my reaction. The silence is the reaction. And in that period of silence, I'm exhibiting and using tools of self-control to not cave and forget why I started in this new decision that I've made to just go quiet. Because you don't need to... Do you really think healthy, loving relationships with men begin from them ghosting you and doing hot and cold? Anything that starts in that way usually doesn't last. So once a man starts acting hot and cold with you, you have to just dismiss it. Doesn't matter how tall he is. Doesn't matter how many times you have imagined yourself, I don't know, being nestled in his biceps after sleeping with him. Doesn't matter how many times you've hung out with him and felt mutual exciting vibes. Doesn't matter how much you and him have in common. He's decided that he's going to blow hot and cold with you because for whatever reason, he thinks you are a well-suited candidate for that behavior. And part of his reasoning comes from his belief that you are likely to fall for it. So he thinks you are stupid. Okay, that's an insult. Are you going to be collecting insults from a man that you're better than? No, you're not. So what are you going to do? You're going to act like he doesn't exist anymore. The first 48 hours are usually the hardest. Yes. Especially when you are an impulsive person. Yes. First 48 hours are usually the hardest because in that first 48 hours, you're processing the L. Not only are you processing the L, you're like, wait, am I a dickhead? What, me? And then you're kind of festering and you're thinking of what to do to make this feeling go away. And usually your immediate impulse as a reactive person, Sagittarius, Leo, Aries, Scorpio. And even if you aren't any of those signs, we all have reactive tendencies, especially if you're a woman who is sensitive and especially if you have anxious attachment, which is most women. We are reactive to feeling rejected. We are reactive to a man's silence. So you have to learn to train yourself out of that behavior and use that 48-hour period of boiling and festering to create your focal point. Because what I like to do is, because me, I'm a human being. I'm not above the feelings of rejection. I'm not above the feelings of confusion or feeling offended or feeling hurt or even developing an attachment to a guy that I fancy. I'm not above that, but I know how to work around those emotions if it's not working for me anymore. So when you are learning self-control and managing your reactivity in that 48-hour period, you have to give yourself full permission to feel the full extent of whatever it is that's coming to the surface for you. So if you feel like crying, you need to cry, okay? Not in front of him. Cry if you have to cry, because the next stage, which we'll discuss after the crying stage, you have to cry first to get to the next stage. Cry, ruminate. If you're more of a cerebral person like I am, ruminate. Revisit the situation and identify where you may have played a role in what is now the outcome. Really dissect it, chew it properly, taste it, gargle the situation around you. Really feel it, really think about it. Give yourself full permission to process it, because after that 48-hour period, the next stage is, say less. The next stage is, okay, since you have put me in a position where I now feel like this, I don't like that you made me feel like this. You don't deserve to make me feel like this. And now I'm going to spend the rest of my time detaching from you. Anytime I get a, fanny flutter flashback, I'm going to counter that fanny flutter flashback with the facts that you're not a good person to even bring my fanny around. I need to counter that fanny flutter flashback with the facts that you feel okay with ghosting me. I need to counter that fanny flutter flashback with the fact that for whatever reason, you don't like me like I perceived. I'm going to have to sit with the facts. And in response to those facts, I'm going to act accordingly and act like you died. Because when someone dies, there is something final about it. You're never going to hear from them again. You're never going to see them again. They're never going to message you again. It's not about you wishing that person evil. It's about the completion and the laying to rest of that crush you had. Because when you act like a man died, it's like, it's really solidifying that detachment and completely disengaging from him. And in that period of, I don't know, that could take a week or even a month, In that period, that's a silent process that's happening on your end. That guy has no idea that you're mentally burying him. That guy has no idea that you spent a 48-hour period crying about him. That guy has no idea about any of this. All he perceives is silence from you. He doesn't know that in that silence, work is being done. So by the time he does come back, because he will come back because someone else has rejected him, or he will come back because he thinks that you're delusional enough and goofy enough to entertain him again because you entertained him the first time for long enough for you to now be feeling how you feel now. When he does come back, he's going to be met with the shock horror that you are not going to be responsive. Because for a man to make you feel like that and you ain't even dating him, or even if you dated him briefly and he's making you feel like that, there is nothing beautiful or fruitful that will come of that. Just insecurities and a lower self-esteem is what you're going to get out of that. Another thing, I touched on crying. My mom used to always say to me, don't ever cry in front of a man that you like. And I used to be like the people in my Instagram comment section and be like, how can you say that? What about true, genuine expression? Why can't I just be myself? Why do I have to hide my crying? If someone loves me, I should be able to cry in front of them. That genuinely was my response to my mum saying don't cry in front of a guy. But as I get older, she's right. She was right about that. The reason why I believe my mum was right when she was saying don't cry in front of a guy is because more time than not, yeah, if you're crying about a man, there's obviously something that he's doing on purpose, and he's getting a kick out of seeing you crying, because you crying is important information for him. You crying is him being aware that you are deeply invested in him emotionally. This is not to say that if your cat gets roadkilled and you happen to need support and you're crying on the phone to him about your cat dying, that you can't cry to him. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you crying about him to him, or crying about him in a way where he can see you crying, or even knowing that you're crying. Save that for the group chat, girl. Okay? I am a strong supporter of crying if you have to about a guy. I do not believe that men are worth crying over. You will eventually get to a stage in your life where you will have such a robust, refined, and grounded outlook that men won't be able to get that kind of reaction out of you anymore. But as you are on that journey, give yourself permission to feel your feelings, innit? This isn't about being perfect. This is about being better than you were with the last guy, because each guy is research. Do you know, my therapist calls me a researcher. Like, when I talk about my dating experiences with my therapist, me and her are both puzzled and confused as to why I still even go on dates, or why I still even entertain men in the dating context, or why I still even bother with men. And she's like, you're just like a researcher. And I feel like, yeah, I'm literally just a researcher in the dating sphere. I literally just be meeting men, and each man is an experience slash experiment, and with each man I take insight and I apply it to myself, and I use it to get sharper and sharper and sharper. And I feel like one day I'm going to meet the man who is meant for me, and I'm going to be so mentally refined, yeah, that he can't outsmart me. I feel like that's what's happening here. Anyway, on crying in front of a man, I'm not saying that if something traumatic happens to you, that you can't express yourself to a man who you believe cares about you. That is completely different to if a man is ignoring you and ghosting you and then you're crying about it to him. Because you know what, yeah? In you thinking that you're being honest and just being yourself, he just thinks that you're stupid. I know it sounds horrible, but that's really how guys see us, you know? They think you stupid. Word to Scissor's grandma on that interlude on her Control album. They think you stupid. They think you're stupid because you don't have self-control. You're just all over the place. Like, you need to learn to pack it in. Pack it in. And that doesn't mean me saying you shouldn't have emotions and you shouldn't cry. I'm trying to make this explicitly clear, because I know there's going to be somebody that will still hear what I'm saying and be like, so you're saying I shouldn't cry? That is not what I'm saying. I am saying you should cry where your tears will be met with the reassurance, understanding, love, and care it deserves. If you have just met a guy that you're talking to and you're showing him all these sides of you, in you thinking that you're bonding and showing him the real you, he's just going to be collecting data that he's going to use to make you cry even more. Because he knows that he can easily make you cry, and he can see that you're somebody who hasn't got that kind of self-control. So you're easily out here getting got. Yes. So, on crying, I think it's important to have your community of women in your life who you really trust, who you know will look out for you. Like, you have to have that. There has been times, and this is not even that long ago. I want to say this was maybe a year to 2 years ago. There's been times when I've had to literally like cry to my friend about a guy that I was seeing, and things ended in a way that was very confusing for me. And I felt like I could cry to that friend because she was there throughout me dating that guy. She was literally there the same time I met him. Like, so I felt like she understood the context fully of my emotions, and because she's such a close friend to me, I feel like it's important to have somebody I can bounce those emotions off of, who is also similarly delicate like I am. And that was necessary for my process of getting past that situation, I don't believe in crying about a man's behavior to him, because it just lowers your self-worth. It just lowers your worth in his eyes. Honestly, I feel like what you should do is instead cry to your friends, to yourself. If you can control the crying, it's best to not cry. Because you know what, yeah. My therapist says anger is sadness with a mask on, right? So if we can acknowledge that the root of anger is sadness, sometimes I feel like it's better if you're upset enough to want to cry, to focus on what you're angry about. Because usually if you're angry, that's actually a positive sign. If you're angry that a man has taken you for an idiot, you're angry because you love yourself and you know you deserve better. So focus on that. That's an important focal point. You deserve better. You are angry that you found yourself in a situation where someone treated you less than what you deserved. You are angry because you are protective of the delicate, beautiful human being that you are. Just like how if you had an older brother or a male figure in your life that was protective over you, he would be angry on your behalf too, that someone did that to you. So it's like the context of that anger is about protection of self. That's the emotion that I like to focus on, because I'll be like, you think it's me you can do that to? All right, cool. Now you're going to get ignored. Now you're going to be treated like you never existed. That's it. I'm not going to be doing, I'm going to send you a spicy paragraph and tell you about yourself so I can hurt your feelings back. Because you're not hurting their feelings back. You're actually hurting yourself more, and you're hindering yourself more because you're making it more known to them that you're pressed, panini pressed, hot wax pressed. Like it don't give what you think it's giving. Another thing, if you really absolutely have to say something to the guy, because there will be scenarios, there will be situations that will involve you needing to say something, whether it's your parting supervillain speech, which I 9 times out of 10 do not recommend, because it doesn't do anything. It's not going to make him change, which is what your intended desired outcome is from the supervillain speech. But if it's going to be a supervillain speech, or if it's going to be you just creating some ground rules before you dip for whatever reason, or you're doing like a handover of whatever it is that you're doing, I would say please draft that in the notes app first. He don't need to see no typing bubble that is popping up and disappearing for a good 2 hours, because he's going to see that bubble of you typing, whether it's on WhatsApp saying, I don't know, Chidera is typing, and that shit is there for like 2 hours because you're there typing and backspacing and typing and reading and backspacing and typing and reading and backspacing. Or if it's on iMessage and it's that bubble of the person typing and it's just appearing and disappearing because you're drafting that message, he's going to see that. He's going to be like, ooh, a storm is on the horizon. She's panini pressed. Oh, here we go. He's going to start mentally preparing himself. It needs to be surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. Catch it. Don't give him time to think. If at all, you absolutely have to send him a paragraph. Second of all, on the topic of sending a paragraph, the reason that I say to draft it in notes app first is because this is another 48-hour period thing that I think you should implement if you absolutely have to say something to this guy. So, your first draft is never the version that you send. Your first draft is the draft that includes a lot of I feel like, and it includes the rawness of the emotion. After you've written that first draft, the purpose of that first draft is to shift a lot of that energy that's just like trapped in your body into something that feels like you've gotten it out somewhere. The second draft will be editing. Please remove all of the I feel likes. If you have to have an I feel like, maybe maximum of one I feel like. Because all this I feel like and I feel like and I feel like, you don't sound convicted. Just state your facts. State your facts. Stand your ground, state your facts. Remove the I feel likes, because it makes you sound a bit like small and whiny. I'm not saying that every time you say I feel like it means you're small and whiny, but if your message is taking long to get to the point, that guy can tell that you don't have high self-esteem, because if you have high self-esteem, you speak with conviction and you say it like it's going to be done. In drafting that paragraph, The third draft, because second draft was removing the I feel like and all the faff. The third draft will be identify the core essential points you want to get across. Meaning, make it clear what it is that you actually want. Do you even know what you want the outcome of this message to be when you send it? Because if you want the outcome of this message when you send it to be that he's going to change, that's not going to happen. You can't make a man change. I think the only thing that can make a man change is him losing you, if he even valued having you in the first place. But that's a whole separate conversation. Secondly, if your desired outcome is for him to recognize his wrongs and apologize to you, that's not guaranteed either, but you're more likely to get that apology and to get that recognition if you are clear in your communication. So try and keep the message as short as possible, short and stern. Because he's expecting a one paragraph. Because men are always expecting women to be over expressive and over emotional. But if you send him something really cold and direct, he's going to be scared. Because it sounds assertive. It sounds really, really clear. And it's harder for him to do the what do you mean? Ha! Because you know what? When you send a big long paragraph, men just gaslight you by being like, what do you mean? After that paragraph has been spent explaining the explanation. Like you're literally over explaining yourself so explicitly because you fear that he's going to say, what do you mean? And he still says, what do you mean? They do that to buy time, one. And two, they do it to just annoy you. So to cut through all of that and bypass all of that time wasting, make it super clear what your message is. Super clear, decisive, bold. If you're a people pleaser, sort of like super nice girl, he's not gonna see that coming. If at all you absolutely have to send him a message, which I don't recommend. I believe in just upping and going without announcement. These guys don't care, man. The same way he switched up on you without announcement. He didn't give you no notification. He didn't give you no 48-hour window period of, hey, I'm about to start acting funny with you, just to give you some time to prepare yourself. In this 48 hours, expect to notice a change in my behavior towards you because I want to sleep with you, but I don't want to treat you well. I would like to rather passively mind bend you and make you feel insecure and drag your worth to a lower point that I can reach because I can't afford to date you properly. And in ignoring you and in making you feel insecure, I will have you trauma bound to me. And I'll have all the sexual access I want. And I'm just waiting this out. I'm going to give it a 30-day window of playing with you. And by 30-day mark, you will be all mine. He ain't going to tell you all that. He's just going to act out of nowhere with this new, uninterested, deliberately ghosty energy. And you're not going to see it coming and you're going to be pressed. So same with him. Change the energy up out of nowhere. Ghost him. He'll be fine. I know there's this ongoing discourse in the well-being world about how ghosting is abusive. I don't think ghosting is abusive if you're disappearing on someone who has emotionally pulled the rug from under your feet. I think you're removing yourself from a situation that does not deserve your energy anymore. And what's ironic is being a dominatrix has actually taught me a lot about self-control. I find myself feeling very sort of, what's the word? Conscious of bringing up being a dominatrix because I don't want to be like, I'm not trying to be the dominatrix evangelist here. I'm not trying to get everybody to be a dominatrix because it's not for everyone. Not everyone has the self-esteem to do it. Not everyone has the desire. Like you don't have to want to dominate men to be a powerful woman. Even though personally, I don't really understand the idea of wanting to be submissive to men. Like, the rare instance I can imagine and understand why submitting to a man might feel beautiful and fun and safe is if that man is minted, generous, and responsible with how he treats you. Outside of that, you submitting to a man whose bills you have to pay? You submitting to a man who... Anyway, let me not even go there. But femdom, as in female domination, feminine domination, female supremacy... all those words essentially describing a woman being a goddess I feel like being in that lifestyle has taught me how to better communicate with men in a direct way, because you're not going to catch a goddess arguing with a sub. If a goddess is arguing with a sub, she ain't a real goddess, isn't it? Because you don't argue with subs. You state your rules. If he's not going to behave like that, then just slam the door, in it. Be going. There's nothing to argue about. You said what you said. The fuck? I don't argue with subs. I know that there is a category of submissive men, who are bratty, and there are some dominatrixes who enjoy that bratty back and forth. I don't have time for that. I'm not interested in that. Most subs don't last that long with me because I'm easily irritated, so I dismiss them, and hopefully they find someone else who will resonate with their inconsistency and their weird behavior. Because most male subs, like I've said frequently on this podcast, most male subs are still in it for their own selfish desires, even though ironically they're subs. So having self-control in that arena, I apply that same self-control to my vanilla life. I don't expect all the men around me to be subs, but I can still behave like a goddess, whether they're subs or not. And obviously, with different men, I will behave differently because I have different expectations of what they're responsive to and what they're more likely to do for me. But no matter whether I'm in a dungeon or out on the road going to Sainsbury's, still a goddess. Still a goddess. You're not gonna have me stepping out of character. No man is good enough to step out of character for. And I feel like oversharing is the comfort zone. A lot of women be oversharing your emotions, oversharing details about yourself because you want this guy to feel closer to you. You want him to feel closer to you because you want to feel closer to him. So you end up feeling closer to him because you've overshared your emotions and details about yourself, but he's not feeling closer to you. He just feels like he has more information to use against you. Oop, there it is. The reason I say that though is because when you're oversharing your emotions with a guy who you don't know like that, that's data for him to use. Because a lot of men, they get supply. They get a rush, a kick, a satisfaction out of knowing that you're pressed over them. They just see it as, this woman is easier to sleep with because she needs my validation. They know that you're going to get validation out of them desiring you. So they'll just strategically make you feel desired. It's not that hard. Oh my God. Let me come back into this world as a man. Watch and see the carnage I would create. No, I'm joking. If I was to reincarnate as a man with the spiritual memory of who I was beforehand, I would actually love to be a sub to women. Like, if I was to reincarnate as a man, I would just be a simp. Like, I would take ownership of my simpness. I don't understand how you can be attracted to women and not be a simp. Like, women are fucking gorgeous. If you're not simping, you're faking it. And on the topic of controlling your emotions, remember how in the beginning of this conversation I said I would touch on sexual self-control and how that ties in with controlling your emotions? I have met countless women who don't have sexual self-control. They don't know how to control their sexual urges, so they end up sleeping with men who are doing nothing useful for them. Whether it's STIs being caught, and there is no shame in catching STIs, like, it happens, innit? You can be in a committed loving relationship and still catch an STI because somebody decided to go do some madness. Anyway, whether it's sleeping with men who have no business being inside your fanny, or whether it's being so sexually impulsive that you're putting yourself in dangerous situations, or you're so sexually impulsive that now that you've had the sex you want to have with this guy, it's created this whole new bucket of problems because you're in this weird sort of back and forth tension, arguing. You're feeling miserable. Your day is ruined because you're arguing with him. Your day is ruined. Now your week is ruined. Now you're depressed. Now you're sleeping more than usual. Now you're not working. Now you're not working anymore. So you're not making as much money as you're making. So the man's not affecting your bag, and the sex ain't even that great anyway. So all for 10 minutes of knacking, you spent like 10 days depressed, and that has affected your money. Like, a lack of control of your sexual urges will get you in big trouble, because that all goes under the umbrella of lack of self-control. Can't control your emotions, can't control your sexual urges. You in danger, girl. You in danger, mouse. Danger, mouse needs to come and help you out. You're in danger. I feel like I have very, very, very good sexual self-control. There have been times on this podcast where I have deliberated on my sexuality. I don't know if I'm asexual or if I just have self-control. The reason why I say I don't know if I'm asexual if I have self-control is because I'm still attracted to men. It's just that I don't feel that moved to act on my attraction because my attraction to men is very conditional. I have had very good looking subs. So because I've had very good looking men sucking my toes, licking my pleaser boots, being a footrest for me, being leashed by me, being trampled in my boots by me, doing tasks for me, snatching money out of their hands, getting them to buy me stuff and never giving them my number or dating them or even letting them meet me. Because I've had all those experiences with men who I would consider good looking, men who other women would like fold at the sight of, it means that when I come across guys in my day-to-day life who I find attractive, I'm not moved by their looks. I'm unmovable in that department. Like, I can take it into consideration, like I said earlier in this conversation, I can take it into consideration, but a man has to do more than being good looking for him to be considered a shortlister in my eyes. He would need to genuinely just be a gentleman with the materials to impress me, because I live a pretty impressive life. Not to gloat, because I'm not a millionaire, but I live an impressive life because I get to do what I want. Like, I'm living the life that I've been wanting to live for a while, being that I pole dance when I want to. If I want to spend time with my family, I can do that. I eat the food that I enjoy eating. I live in a comfortable, safe, beautiful apartment that I pay for. I am in a career that I've created for myself. I love what I do. I work on my own time and terms. It's not a perfect life, but it is the life that I chose. And the ability to choose your life and not settle for it comes with a lot of hard work to get to that place. So because I already live a life I enjoy, there's nothing a good looking or kind man that can do to make a difference. There's nothing a good looking or kind man can do to make a difference to my life. It's already beautiful. Like, yeah, you can be nice to me. That's nice. But that's not going to make me be like, oh my God, no one's ever been nice to me. I need to date you now. Like, I have great men in my life who are nice to me. This is what I'm saying about if you live a life that's already beautiful, you already have men in your life who are kind to you and love you and you're not dating them. It means that, like, when you do come across men who are potential people that you might want to date or even just show some interest in, it's going to take a lot more for you to actually see them as exceptional enough to consider dating them. Like, I have my own money. I have all of my own stuff. So a man needs to be able to provide for me to be like, okay, this is what I would give my time to. If you can't do that, I'm sorry, but we can just be cheeky chap pen pals. We can be friends. And I don't think it's even a bad thing to be friends with women, because a lot of men don't value friendship with women. They see friendship as, oh my God, friend zone. And I've talked about this in a prior podcast episode called The Fallacy of the Friend Zone, where I dive into why the friend zone is a very fascinating place. And it's a term men created, but the idea that men don't value being friends with women is just laughable in itself. Anyway, the point I'm making is that if you live a life that is already substantial and exciting, you can't be moved by men's behavior to try and rattle you. Their goal is to rattle you. And it's mainly broke men that want to rattle you, because money is the one thing they don't have. And that's the one thing that they know will impress you. Being impressed by money doesn't make you vapid or materialistic. And when people use the word materialistic, they're using it to try and shame you. It's like, nice things exist for a reason. Luxury exists for a reason. Nice things and luxury exist because somebody out there is worth it. If nobody out there was deserving of such amazing treatment, those services wouldn't exist. Those products wouldn't exist. It's there for somebody. Somebody's a target audience. It's me. It's me. I'm the target audience. I like nice things. It's me. Buy it for me. Do it for me. Don't worry. So people try to scare women out of wanting more by using words like materialistic, by saying that you're not going to have a real, genuine relationship with a man if you're thinking about what you're doing while interacting with him. It's like, but this is why people are getting got, though. This is exactly why you're getting got, because there is no sense of tact, strategy, intention in how you're acting. When you use words like strategy, people think you're being conniving and over-calculated, and they're scared of it. Men are strategic all the time. A man's goal when he's attracted to you is to sleep with you. His strategy is to get you to a place where you're receptive enough to let him do that. He can't do that without your permission or access. It doesn't mean that if he's being nice to you, that means that he's evil and fake. It's just that he's motivated by your pussy. I've always said, yeah, I'm never offended by a man wanting to sleep with me because I'm attractive. In theory, you should want to sleep with me because I'm hot. It's how you go about it. That's where we may have an issue. Or we might not if you go about it correctly. So when you have self-worth, self-control, sexual urges will not move you. Girl, if you're horny, you need to learn how to desire yourself properly. You need to learn how to touch yourself properly. You need to find yourself attractive while you're touching yourself. Like, you can't be relying on men to give you that. Because more times than not, when you want to have sex with a guy, probably what you want is validation and to feel wanted. I don't think it's the actual sex you want, because really and truly, what is this sex everybody is having that for that reason alone, they have to throw away their entire rationale and reasoning system for 10 minutes? For 10 minutes of finger blasting. Really? Really? Is it really that good? Is it really that good that you will make life-changing decisions for 10 minutes of finger blasting? You're giving that man the key to your house, knowing him 2 weeks in because of some good finger blasting? Is it really that good? Is it really that good? Or are you so deprived of a perspective that allows you to see yourself as wanted, loved, sexy, satisfied without a guy bringing that your way? Because if you're able to feel all those things without a man, then when you finally and eventually meet a guy who fulfills you in all those ways, it's going to feel even more amazing. And the best part is you can walk away whenever you want to, should he decide to start acting up, because that time will at some point come, because men will always test the boundaries. And it's not the end of the world if a man tests the boundaries. You get to show him how hot the fire is over here. You are always good. Like, you're always better off than you think. But I've seen scarcity mindsets and desperation ruin a lot of women's lives. I've seen women's lives get ruined from being horny. Because from being horny, they made the choice to sleep with some man that they met on a dating app. And then from there, that man just like brought stress, baggage, attachment issues, bare things. And it's like, you're probably not in a place where you should be dating, let alone fucking. Most people don't want to hear that because they're horny and they have urges. And like I keep saying, if you don't already have a great sexual relationship with yourself, you are in danger. Men can't do that for you, because the more you know what your body wants, whether that's how you want to be treated as a human being, whether that's how you want to be treated sexually, the more you know that, the harder it is for a man to just like get you from telling you that he wants to eat you out. And this is coming from the perspective of someone who's a dominatrix. I've had countless men approach me and their first line is, "Good evening, goddess, how can I serve you?" And I know that when they're asking me, how can I serve you? They're not asking me what errand that they would like for me to... They're not asking me what errand I would like for them to run. They're not asking me how many £100 I would like them to send me right now. What they're asking is it that they want me to be eaten out, or is that they want to kiss my feet? They just want to have some sort of sexual interaction with me because it's for them, not me. They're serving me, but they're serving themselves really and truly. But they're trying to give the illusion and the impression that they're serving me. And if you're somebody who is easily swayed and swooned by a man calling you a goddess, if you're someone that's not used to being the center of the attraction or the star of the show, whether that's sexually or in the relationship, you're going to be getting got by these fake, inauthentic subs who will tell you things like, "Hey, goddess, I just want to sexually serve you. I just want to do all the things you want." Like, girl, you can do better than that. Guess what? Not only can you find a man who will sexually serve you, you can also find a man who will financially serve you and be really nice to you and care about your future and be invested in you emotionally and actually care about seeing a long-term relationship with you and actually fucking treat you well. You can have all of that and more. Turns out you can have it all, because what we call it all isn't even that much. Who would have thunked? Another thing, before I wrap this up, on the topic of self-control and controlling your emotions, please, I'm begging you, no more reposting all these RH sin and all these like emotional poets on Instagram who will post things that somehow conveniently represent your situation. Because guys expect, most of us are on social media, right? So guys expect for you to be emotional on social media if you've just had an argument with them, or if you are seething over a breakup with them. Their first thought is to go and look at your stories, whether it's from a burner account or their main account, depending on how gutsy they are. They'll go and look at your stories to see if you're reposting venting posts, or if you're looking pressed. This also applies to tweeting. You need to have self-control with social media. I have experienced the consequences of not having self-control when it comes to social media. I don't even regret a single thing that I've ever said on social media. I just have had a change of mind of where I would have said it, if that makes sense. Because in this life, it's not necessarily what you say, it's how you say it, it's where you say it, it's when you say it, it's who you say it to. The same thoughts that I've had online that I would have once shared online are thoughts that I now share in the room with my friend in front of me. Or I might just have a conversation with her over a text message or on the phone call. You don't have to say everything you think on the internet. And this especially matters in two areas of your life: work and dating. If you are a public figure or an influencer, or your social media accounts affect your work, it's not every thought that you have to send out as a tweet. Some of them can stay in the drafts. You know, I've seen a lot of people, they don't have self-control with social media, and I can tell that they also don't have self-control in real life. There's something about the two just going hand in hand. When you don't know how to control what your output is on the internet, when it comes to things that you care about and you're feeling enraged by or you're excited by, you're just so impulsive, you feel like you have to just tweet everything. I could tell that you're probably someone that's a bit erratic emotionally. There's something about the correlation. I don't know. Scientists got to study that shit. I don't know, but there's a correlation there. And the same thing applies to if you've just gotten out of a relationship with a guy and you're feeling hella emotional. If I was you. Because this is what I've been doing all the time, yeah? And nobody can ever tell. This is the most foolproof way to still express yourself online after a guy has hurt your feelings without him even knowing that you're trying to get him pressed, or without him knowing that you're acting from a place of vim. Do you remember that tweet from Chris Brown when he was like harassing Karuchi, his ex-girlfriend, and she was posting gorgeous thirst traps, and Chris Brown tweeted, "Don't let the thought form from anger." Let the thought form from anger. Do you know what thought is? Thought is just another word for hoe. And I think we all know what hoe is, a term that men created to shame women for being gorgeously sexual in a visible manner. Anyway, sometimes let the thought form from anger, but you have to strategically let the thought form, okay? So how I let the thought form is sometimes might be that I'm pole dancing. Now, with pole dancing, it's harder to tell if I'm just thoughting because I'm angry or thoughting because I feel flexible or sexy that day. Hard to tell. But pole dancing has been an incredible way for me to have an outlet that allows me to feel sexy and allows me to process my emotions. This is also why people go to the gym when they are feeling like emotionally chaotic. You go to the gym because it's a cathartic thing to be able to do. And also there are genuine health benefits because of the exercise. The blood circulating around your body and getting to your brain. Pole dancing has that same benefit. I'm not saying that every single woman needs to go and pole dance if she's gotten over a man, but I will say that that is probably one of the most healing and rewarding things you can do for yourself if you can afford it and if you have the time and if you have the physical capability. However, there are other ways to still enjoy your sexiness and exude that sensuality from a place of feeling a little vengeful without it coming across too obvious. So that means going out more. Do you remember when Drake made a lyric in Hotline Bling about started wearing less and going out more? Yes. I'm not saying that if you're someone who is modest, whether that's for your faith or for your own personal relationship with your body, that you have to just become this inauthentic version of yourself who is wearing less. But if you are someone who is comfortable wearing less and you notice that you feel good when you wear less and go out more. Yes. Because when I have gone out and I've worn less and I'm feeling good, it matters. Especially if I'm in a headspace where somebody had me questioning myself. A guy had me questioning myself. Wear less and go out more. Make plans. Find something to do. There's always something to do if you live in a big city like London or New York or LA or Lagos. Find something to go and do. There's always something to go and do, especially when you're sexy. Even if that means going on more dates. And you know what? I'm not really a big fan of encouraging women to go on more dates on dating apps, because most men on dating apps are just looking for sex. But I will say, if you're feeling in the mood to meet new people, there's no harm in going to a nice bar in Mayfair and just enjoying a cocktail of your own. Be in the environment where you can meet someone else. Go to more social events. There's things like what I don't go to any of these, but I've heard from my friends who go that it's quite fun. Recess, DLT brunch for in the UK. Recess is a party night, I think, like a party. They throw parties. Recess. There's DLT brunch, which is also a party events night. Pussy Palace, if you're flavoursome and queer. Find things to go and do. And document your sexiness, not from a place of having something to prove to the guy who might be watching your stories, but just because you're feeling good anyway. You never know who else might be watching. There's something really exciting and attractive about a woman who's just having fun and living her life. And more times than not, when that guy who was acting funny with you, doing sleepy eye with you, sees you out living your life looking sexy, and he's the kind of guy that likes to quietly watch you, he's going to be seething. He's going to be like, damn, she's looking good. And now we're not on talking terms. I need to figure out a way to start a conversation with her. He doesn't know that no matter what way he figures out to start a conversation, none of the ways will work. Because he's already proven himself to be a dickhead. Do you really think that great, healthy relationships start with you having to try and now convince and passively mind bend a man into respecting you? Because even if you're posting all those thirst traps to kind of low-key still get his attention and get your lick back, yeah, ultimately, that's not a healthy place to start a relationship. You might as well just mentally throw that man away and just be collecting the ego boost of knowing that he's watching. Just use him as another ego boost, because that's what they use us as. Men use women as ego boost. Use him as another ego boost. That's all he's now become. And he's relegated himself to that position because he had an opportunity and he chose not to use it. That's his own fault. You've now been relegated to ego boost. Sit on the bench. You will never be a main pet player again. And that's all down to your own doing. So you have more power than you think. And you need to live a life that's full of things to do, so that if a man ghosts you, you're not sitting there feeling all burnt and upset because you've got things to do, stuff to look forward to, exciting places to go. You got self-control. And when you're feeling horny, you go and sort yourself out. You don't open a dating app and go and find the first guy who's asked you if you like sucking dick. Because that doesn't end well. It doesn't end well. And if in the rare instance it ends in marriage, great. But do I really want to start out something with a man who his opening line to me was, do you like sucking dick? No. I feel like I would rather start something with a man who's opening line on a dating app, if at all I'm going to use a dating app, is, you're so gorgeous. What can I do to improve your day? Wow, I would love to take you for dinner. There's this really nice place I'd love to try out in Mayfair. You know what I'm saying? Now we're talking. Okay? But you won't really see these outcomes, or you won't really have these experiences if you don't know how to control your emotions. A lot of shit in this life starts with self-control. And self-control extends far beyond dating. Like, you can really fuck up your career from not having self-control. You can really fuck up your future prospects from not having self-control. Whether that's like, the saying, loose lips sink ships. Yeah, that's like just not knowing when to stop. Know when to stop. That will save you. And that's really what has gotten me to a place where I feel a lot more powerful and grounded. You cannot rattle me. You can't. I don't give a fuck how good looking you are. All you have is looks. Are you not ashamed? Are you not embarrassed and ashamed of yourself that as a man, you came to a woman who you know it takes more to impress her, and you thought that your looks would carry you far? That tells me that you're an idiot, and that's not even someone that I would date, because if you can miscalculate this, there's more things you'll miscalculate due to overconfidence. And it's because other women have entertained you, and I'm not other women, and you've had to find out in a very unfortunate way. The end.